Today, we are talking about the spring football depth chart for the Texas Longhorns. We are going to go into each and every position, and we will move down the depth chart at each spot. Your burning questions will be answered. Have you been wondering about Prince Dorba, Tyler Owens, Hudson Card, Jared Wiley, BJ Foster, Anthony Cook? So have I, but I couldn't do it alone. We have my friend Eric on, owner of Inside Texas and a dope journalist who breaks UT news constantly. I'm going to pepper him with questions and we will know exactly where the team stands by the end of this video at each spot. This is the first long-form Inside Texas and Texas Homer collab to bring the fans insider information. Inside Texas is my pick for the top reporting source on Texas football because they have the track record to prove it. They called that Herman would be getting fired when the common reporting at the time was he was surely staying. They called that Herman was going to come to Texas instead of LSU. And also, they broke the Mike Yurcich and Chris Ash hires last year and broke the Jeff Banks hire this year. When I'm looking at primary reporting sources to use for my videos, I have to go with a proven track record, and Inside Texas has that. And they keep me from giving you wrong information, which is extremely important to me. So sub to Inside Texas over on InsideTexas.com. I recommend them personally, and also I was a subscriber long before this channel's creation. I actually had to call Eric to change my username to Texas Homer on there when this channel launched. And don't forget, before the show, this video is sponsored by Last Stand hats. They are all over social lately, and they have a ton of hat designs in different hat styles, all officially licensed by the University of Texas. So use promo code TexasHomer, all caps, for 10% off your hat purchase at laststandhats.com. Link in the description. So, are you looking for a full breakdown on spring ball? Well, here's the Texas Longhorns full spring preview and position breakdown. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so I can keep bringing you bigger and better Texas Longhorns content. If you like what you see, join as a channel member if you want to support quality UT content by hitting the blue join button on my page. And without further ado, let's get into it. What's up, brother? We have Eric in the house of Inside Texas fame. Thanks for coming on the channel, man. I'm super excited to give the fans what they want here.
Hey, thanks for having me, Homer. I'm a big fan of your work. Excited to have you with Inside Texas. I'm looking forward to having the ability to reach more fans, and I can see you've already got a good community growing, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that, and we definitely have nothing on Inside Texas, but we are making something cool here, I think. But let's not waste any more time, man. Let's get into some things. You ready to get going? Start with offense. The first position group is our most watched position battle. The fans are really excited for Casey Thompson and Hudson Card. There's some things I want to get cleared up about both of those guys. Sark said in his first press conference that Thompson and Card were equally repping with the ones. Thompson was electric in the Alamo Bowl, and Card's arm has been really impressive behind the scenes. It's going to be a legit QB battle. So, Eric, when do we see the QB competition actually resolved?
Yeah, fans are going to want some resolution in the spring, but I wouldn't expect that. It's going to be a spirited battle probably going into the first game. So don't look for this to be decided anytime soon, and it shouldn't be because I think they are somewhat equally matched. Obviously, Casey has the experience factor. Hudson Card probably has more athletic upside, more NFL upside. But, you know, Mac Jones wasn't exactly the prototype, and look what Sarkisian was able to do with him. Casey Thompson has a lot of innate ability. He sees the field well. He's a good leader. He's got a better arm than he's given credit for. It's not Hudson Card's arm. You know, Card has more upside. There's no doubt about it. But Sark's going to be looking for who leads the offense better, who brings the best out of the teammates, and that's going to be decided over a lot of reps, not just a month-long block of practices.
Cool. There's a lot to look forward to there. And this is kind of off script, but fans ask me this all the time, and it's an interesting question. Do you think whoever ends up not starting will end up transferring?
I doubt it. I think that Sarkisian holding an open, honest competition is going to endear himself to both guys. They understand that there's a competition involved, and somebody has to start, take the first snaps. That debate might not even be answered in September. And of course, there's always the injury issue. Neither guy is actually built to be durable. You know, some guys last longer than others. Johnny Manziel took a lot of hits and he was always fine. And then other guys are bigger and they're more brittle. So, you know, but Card has had trouble staying healthy. Thompson is not a very big guy, and you're one play away from coming in. So you just have to prepare like you're the starter, even if you're not. Um, there's not much upside in either guy transferring right now. Maybe if Thompson loses it, and then he has 1 year after this season, then it might make sense to go pick out the perfect situation for him. But I don't think either guy would transfer. That's a common concern for fans, but I think it's a little overblown.
All right, cool. That's just soothed the fans a bit. And I want both of these guys on the team in the coming years, so that's good to hear. Let's go further down the depth chart. Is Charles Wright QB3? What's Ben Ballard up to?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be Charles Wright versus Ben Ballard. You always defer to the scholarship guy. Well, unless you're Mike Yursich and it's Ballard versus Jaquindon. But yeah, I mean, Wright is going to be a guy that you can kind of throw in the fire and let him just run around and try to survive. That's what he was doing throughout his career in high school, and you like that. He's a little more battle tested. I think he's got a good arm, quick actions, quick feet, and he's just going to have more advantages over Ben Ballard, even though Ballard has some time in the college game.
I'm the leader of the Charles Wright fan club. I was really impressed with his arm in high school on his huddle tape. Now I have an impossible question for you, but we got to give the fans what they want. At the end of the day, who is the starting quarterback for Texas when it's all said and done?
Yeah, I won't shy away from the tough questions, but I will mock them at times. I think it's kind of a Kelly Bryant situation that we saw at Clemson with Trevor Lawrence right behind him. You defer to the experience first, and then you see where it goes from there. Kelly Bryant wasn't performing up to par early on, and they decided to go with Trevor Lawrence. I'm not saying it's exactly like that because I really like Casey's upside. I mean, I've been a fan of Casey Thompson since he was a sophomore in high school. I was talking to my college contacts about him very early on. I was excited when Texas got him. I think there's more talent there than people realize. At the same time, there's a point where the more talented youngster overtakes the guy. Now, is that this year, next year, or maybe not at all because Casey has other attributes to make up for it. But I do think that there's a chance that Hudson starts at some point next year. But I think it's probably more likely that Casey is your opening day starter. But I'm not sure. I urge fans not to take sides. Just hope that the best
Mhm.
quarterback plays.
Absolutely. Taking sides is super silly, and we want both of these kids to succeed. Now, what do you know about Thompson and Card's leadership behind the scenes? We do have a power vacuum there since Sam declared for the NFL.
Yeah, they're both more quiet as far as leadership goes. They're a little more quiet than a lot of your rah quarterbacks. But everybody has their own style of leadership. They are leaders without a doubt. They're not passive. They're confident. Hudson was at the Under Armour All American game that my buddy coached at, and Jerry was out there as well. Jerry Hamilton here inside Texas, and that coach who has coached some of the best players that have come out of high school in a long time. Told me that he has everything you want. And I said, what do you mean by everything? He said, everything. I said, leadership, because that's one of my questions about Hudson, because he is a little more quiet. And he said, yeah, he definitely has the leadership. He knows he's good. But he's not overconfident. And that's what you want out of your quarterback. So I don't have any concerns there. But I will say this, Bijan Robinson is probably the current leader of the team, at least on the offensive side of the ball, which is rare for a running back.
Dude, we are super lucky to have these two quarterbacks battling it out. No matter who wins, the fans will win. And we haven't had that for a long time. And that's also awesome that you brought up Bajan as the leader because we are covering the running backs next. Running back is no surprise. Bajan Robinson will be the starter. What can we expect to see out of him in this new offense?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the year we'll see him with some more versatility than we saw last year. We were just happy to see him getting carries later in the season. But they'll open up a couple more pages on the playbook. You'll see him line up in the slot, and they'll throw to him more. Part of that is his ability. Part of that is they're not super in love with the wide receivers, at least not yet. So they'll take more advantage of his versatility. Sarkisian does like to have a bell cow. He will. He's not huge into the platoon back system. So you're gonna see your fair share of Bijan as long as he's healthy.
Quick question. Under Herman, we were doing the running back by committee thing. I also know that Stan Drayton wants to preserve his back's NFL potential by not beating them up on every play. So was the subbing of the running backs more Herman or Drayton?
Nah, I mean they like running back by committee. That was their preference. They also have some of that blood for the program. You've got to really earn your way to get onto the field. I mean, we saw the same with Keontae Ingram his freshman year when he was the most talented running back. It's like, get these guys the ball. Mac Brown did it. Mac Brown didn't start playing Cedric Benson until after they lost to OU his freshman year. So it's like sometimes these head coaches are the last to know what they're doing.
Cool. Thanks for clearing that up. The number 2 spot is looking like Rashawn Johnson. So how much should we expect to see him on the field?
Yeah, well, of course, Bijan's going to get the bulk of the carries, but Rashawn is so versatile and so tough that you can do a lot of things with him. He's going to get his carries for sure, but also he's going to be a good blocker. He's also has good hands. He does a little bit of everything. I'm excited to see him uh, running behind this offensive line. When there's a more predictable lane, he's going to be better. He doesn't have like the feel and necessarily the nuance that a natural running back like Bijan has. But if he has a predictable lane, he's going to hit it really hard. The urgency he runs with, the toughness that he runs with. He's a little bit reckless. Sometimes he's not the most natural. He'll miss a hole. But when it's time to get downhill and get it, he does that. And I think it's this offensive line change is gonna benefit him as much as anybody.
What's Rashawn's leadership like behind the scenes? Is he a leader on the team?
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. It's very rare to get this type of leadership from the running back position that they have. Everybody respects Rashawn. Everybody loves Rashawn. Of course, it's rare to get leadership from a running back, but really he still has got quarterback DNA in him.
That is a good point that Rashawn came up as a quarterback and has that mentality. So finally, we got to figure out who the third running back is. I know Daniel Young is back. So what's his status?
Yeah, Daniel Young's back with the team. Sets a very high floor as far as the backup, or wouldn't want to call him an emergency running back because he's talented enough to play, especially in short yardage situations. But yeah, he guards against any depth concerns. And of course, we're waiting for your guy Jonathan Brooks to get there in August, and that'll be another body in there to compete with.
Dude, I'm excited for Jonathan Brooks. I think he's going to be a special running back for us. And that room's only going to improve in 22 and 23. So that's a wrap on running back. We're looking solid there. Now let's get on to the old big boys. All right, so Kyle Flood is in the house, and O line is a major topic amongst the fans. I've heard it both ways that our O line needs work and also that we look good there. So, which one is it? What's the state of the offensive line, and what is the current starting lineup at this moment?
Yeah, the offensive line is in a lot better shape than I think people realize because they saw the struggles for the bulk of last season. But once you saw these guys getting on the move, working horizontally, you started to see creases open up. And of course, Bijan is going to help them look better. But there's a lot of talent for the new coaching staff to work with, and I think they're sort of going off those guys that would have been good at Alabama or had a chance to compete at Alabama. They're going kind of off traits, more so off of the play on the field that they saw last year. And that's best epitomized by Christian Jones being the current starting left tackle. I say current because that's subject to change like all these are. The depth chart is just sort of a loose template. It's ever changing. We're filming on Saturday, and it's already a different lineup than they had earlier in the week. So the depth isn't as important as the composite of all the traits that they have to work with. And they have a lot more to work with than people realize. So you've got Christian Jones at left tackle. Sort of looks the part. He's big. He's physical. He does lack some technical refinement, and that's why you see him get beat in pass pro. But he's strong, physical, and has all the tools to become actually an early round draft pick. If they can get him tuned in to left tackle, and it's a big win for the staff. At left guard, it used to be Junior Angelo. Right now, Denzel Okafor is working there. He's a sixth-year senior. Still has problems with his pass sets, but he has good length for guard. And he's a good drive blocker. He has a good chance to hold on to the left guard, but that's not set in stone. Probably the only thing that's set in stone is Jake Major starting at center. Obviously, you saw him play last year for an injured Derek Kerstetter, and he came in and played admirably. He's quick off the ball. He's some of that tackle quickness that you saw in his high school highlights. That's coming across at center. You have to be quick off the ball at center, otherwise you're going to get crushed. He's able to make blocks that Kerstetter wasn't because of that tackle athleticism. I know Kerstetter's played tackle, but he's more of a grappler than he is a pure athlete. At right guard, Junior Angelo settled in there for now. There's a good chance he ends up there, but that's not, we don't know that for sure. There's a long way to play out. He might end up back at the left side, and he's going to get pushed even to be a starter just because, and that's a good sign that there is depth here, more depth than people realize. Then a right tackle today, Saturday. That means Isaiah Hookfin was starting today, but earlier in the week it was Andre Karich. Hookfin is another guy that if he was on the Alabama roster, you wouldn't be able to tell him apart from a starter or a depth guy. He just looks the part. He's big, athletic. The thing that he has going for him is he's athletic enough to redirect after getting beat. And that's something you really have to have, especially in a league that's kind of keyed up on the pass rush. So those are your starters right now. But again, that started changing, and it's not even worth really hanging your hat on it as far as this being set in stone. It's going to change a lot. There's actually probably more talent at guard than what's starting. You talk about Tyler Johnson. Again, he looks the part. I ran into him at Buffalo Wild Wings in the ninth grade. Nobody had ever heard of him, and I thought he was a senior in high school. He looks like an Alabama offensive lineman. He's athletic enough to be an Alabama offensive lineman. Kyle Flood just needs to sort of harness that beast and get him out and get some of that dog coming out of him that you have to have. He's got Justin Blaylock's size and athleticism, but does he have that mentality? If he's not in your starting five, that tells you that there's actual ability. He was playing great last year in the bowl game, making reach blocks that typical guards can't make. Um, they're in a good spot offensive line, and that's just the first six.
How's Andre Carrick looking?
Today he was back working at left tackle behind Christian Jones. So they're looking to find the tackle depth that they need. Need at least three guys, a true left tackle and then a swing guy and then a right tackle. There's a good chance that he ends up starting and Christian Jones ends up on the right side. Ideally, Christian Jones ends up on the left side, and then you have a really high floor over on the right side. If Christian Jones can beat out Andre Carrick on the left side, Kyle Flood's earning his money right off the bat. Carrick has a good chance to be a right tackle, but Carrick also has enough fight and anger in his game to play guard, and he could be a fantastic guard. Could be a good tackle, fantastic guard. His only issue is arm length. He's not a guy that's going to be able to pass you the potatoes at the dinner table. But if he gets up out of his chair, he's mean, quick feet, technical. So he's a really good player. He's a guy I really thought was undervalued coming out of high school.
And of course, we are anticipating the return of Derek Kerstetter after his injury. Where does he fit into the mix?
Yeah, Kerstetter's still rehabbing from his very ugly injury late last season. He needs to get right, get healthy. But there's a lot of value in him not being out there right now to the staff. Staff can groom these younger guys, and then they can kind of plug in Derek wherever they feel he's most needed. If they have the tackle spot situated, then he's going to have to fight at guard. Worst case scenario is he's a backup role player. But that would tell you a lot of positives about the offensive line. The fact that you can't just plug in, guarantee Derek Kerstetter a starting spot is proof that this offensive line is improving.
It's exciting to hear that the offensive line is looking good. We can finally start to get rid of some of the narratives that the O-line is the weak link. And I'm going to have my eyes glued on all those positions throughout camp. But that's a wrap with O-line. Are you ready to get into the wide receivers and slot receivers? I was reading your humidor on Inside Texas the other day, and I saw that we aren't really doing wide receiver positions at this moment. So no X, Z, or slot, just inside and outside receivers. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, under Herman, it was pretty rigid. He was looking for the prototype X as your boundary receiver, the speed guy is your Z guy, and then the slot reliable guy. He had a different version of the slot. I call him the slot machine, which is kind of that running back build. They're strong after the catch. They can break a tackle. Devin Duvernay fits that, even though he was 6'4". Little Jordan Humphrey fits that. It's not exactly the OU type of slot, which I call a vertical slot, which you're going to probably see Sarkisian want to use more. But Sarkisian isn't as hung up on those fits. For Tom Herman, you had to be a 6'5" boundary receiver like Colin Johnson. The Z was just a speed guy that you want out there to take safety help and open up the middle. Sarkisian just wants the best guys out there that can get open, catch the ball. And that's what he's working at. Some guys prototype better to other fits, some fits than others. And then you're going to try them there first. But, as evidenced by Jordan Whittington playing at the X, which is the boundary receiver that we saw Colin Johnson play for a long time. He's not hung up on these prototypes.
That's interesting that Whittington is playing on the outside. What's the deal with slot receivers now that Jake Smith is out? Does Whittington end up moving back inside?
Yeah, so the move of Jake Smith breaking his foot first day of practice, that's definitely going to probably shake things up. Jaden Alexis is a talented true freshman, but is he ready to play there in prime time? Probably not. So I could definitely see Jordan Whittington going over to the slot, which is where he played, and he fits that slot machine thing I was just telling you about, where he's got that running back ability after the catch. He's definitely a guy that's dangerous. Why he wasn't getting 3 crossing routes every game last year, I'm not sure. But he has to stay healthy, of course. He looks leaner, which is definitely going to probably help him, not have those soft tissue injuries he's had in the past. Big season for him. But, yeah, he's probably going to move to the slot. And then you've got Kai Money there, who's still getting reps in practice, which upsets the fan base. But Sark's managerial style is to not come in and upset the apple cart. He wants to see for his own eyes which guy should be where. He's not just going to bench a guy just, because fans don't like him or whatever. So Jaden Alexis is probably a guy to watch to make noise. He fits sort of that slot machine and vertical slot template I was talking about. He's got long speed to get over the top. but he's also strong after the catch, and that shouldn't be too surprising. His dad was Rich Alexis, played running back in the NFL for a long time. Also, I think he's valedictorian of his class, so he's going to pick up the offense rather quickly. So yeah, you want to get Jake back and healthy. That's not going to happen anytime soon. Jordan Whittington come in and play that role capably. He might even be better than Jake long term. Who knows?
Dude, there's no better slot machine in the land than someone actually named Kai Money. So, but I actually want to circle back to Jordan Whittington originally being on the outside. How's he doing as an outside receiver? That's super interesting to me.
Yeah, well, he's got good hands and he can get open. He can run good routes. The first time, when he came onto the scene as a freshman in high school, he also already looked like a senior in high school physically. Had him pegged as a safety all the way, sort of like a Brandon Jones type. Then I went and watched him run routes and was blown away. And so, you look for the different ways to create separation. Some guys do it with size, some guys do it with speed, some guys do it with route running. He can do it with quickness and route running. And over in the boundary, when you're trying to convert 3rd and 8, you don't care how the separation comes about. If you can get it, throw it to him, catch it. He's reliable. He's tough. He'll convert. So he does have some of those attributes that you want at X, even though he doesn't look like that skyscraper that you're used to seeing over there under Tom Herman.
All right, so we're seeing Joshua Moore and Kelvonte Dixon as Z most likely, with Alvonte Woodard and Marcus Washington backing up the X most likely. So how are the top wide receivers looking?
Yeah, so if you look at some of those guys that are more outside, Kelvonte Dixon, he can actually play inside without a doubt. But I liken him to Billy Pittman coming into Texas. He's got that long speed over the top that you like. We saw evidence of that late in the season. He's a better route runner than people realize. He might have been the second best wide receiver on the team last year, at least in practice, if you talk to former coaches. So there's a lot of talent there to work with. I expect to see him quite a bit this season. He's got a chance for a breakout spring for sure. Alvonte Woodard, he's the all-other statesman. Great dude, great teammate. Does have some ability. Hasn't really gotten his chance. When he's out there, he's made some plays. Might not have that long speed that he was rated highly for coming out of high school, but he's pretty reliable and he's tough after the catch. He does what's asked of him. Reliability is an underrated trait for a wide receiver. You're going to be at the right spot at the right time. If so, you're probably open. So there's a good chance that he has a breakout senior season. We've seen it before. John Harris had a huge one a few years back. Guy came out of nowhere and really produced. I'm not saying he'll have a breakout year like that, but I wouldn't sleep on him, especially if there's opportunity. He's going to be ready to jump in the mix.
How's Marcus Washington looking?
Yeah, Marcus is another one of those that where actually the outside receiver with no X or Z attached to it makes sense. Because I do think he has the speed to play outside to the field. But his best position is going to be X. And again, he's another example of not needing somebody tall to play the position. As long as you can get open, catch the ball, the open receiver is a quarterback's best friend, and that could be Marcus. If Jordan Whittington moves over to the slot, it's going to open up more reps for Marcus. Long term, he's probably going to be your number 2 behind O'Meary.
Uh-oh, you just said the magic words to the fan base, Troy O'Meary. How are things progressing behind the scenes with Troy?
Yeah, Troy, Troy's got high football character. He wants to be great. He's kind of attacked his rehab in a manner that you'd expect from that statement I just made. He's already kind of an urban legend because of the spring he had last year. But when I really bought into him was really his senior year was really good. But when I saw him separating from good cornerbacks at Texas with speed, not just size, that's what really caught my eye. Great hands, attacks the ball, huge wingspan, huge catch radius, but better long speed. That long speed gives him significant upside, more than I had anticipated. So he looks like some of those bigger Clemson wide receivers that you've seen in the past.
Is a healthy Troy in the starting lineup?
Oh yeah, if he's healthy, he's gonna. Yeah, I mean, he's gonna be probably your X. Again, I'm over here, laying waste to these stereotypes of the tall X wide receiver, but Troy can pull it off. He's not just a target guy that's going to post up a smaller defender. He's going to go over the top as well.
Awesome.
And also, his hands are really good. So you could probably see him in the RPO game. They might move him around a lot, hit him on a tunnel screen if the goal is to pick up 6. They want to convert a first down. You can do that with him.
Awesome, dude. Are there any other wide receivers we need to keep an eye on for a potential breakout season?
Kennedy Lewis is one that, when you see size and speed, he's pretty intriguing. He's running great track times as a senior in high school, was a little raw. He's had some issues with staying eligible. But if he's back and healthy and plugged in, he could surprise people. Um, all gas, no brakes means that they're going to throw it deep a lot, and that you need guys that can get open, who can run a vertical and beat DBs. Kennedy's one of the few guys that can do that right now.
Cool. We're definitely gonna have to keep our eye on the wide receiver room and kind of see how everything shake out. But we definitely have some guys on there that could help us a lot in Sark's new scheme. So we're done with the receivers, both outside and inside. So let's move on to my favorite position group, the tight ends. First things first, I know the fans want this answered fairly quickly. We currently have Cade Brewer as first string and Jerry Wiley as the second string with Malcolm Epps at three. What can we expect out of this position battle? Wiley coming out on top?
Yeah, this is definitely one to watch. Sark isn't nearly as quite as reliant on having a single body at tight end. Tom Herman was wanting to leave Brewer out there for the myriad roles that he asked for, in line, flexed out, motioning around. Sark is going to be more inclined to find who can do each individual job the best. You saw Alabama using three tight ends, inline guy, an all-purpose guy, and more of a flex athlete. Texas has that assembly. Maybe not the inline guy that he had. He had a glorified offensive lineman at Alabama. But I really like Wiley to be the guy that gets the most reps. He fits what 87 was doing at Alabama last year. He's versatile. He's athletic. He's a huge matchup problem because he's so tall. He's a legit 6'6", 6'7" guy. He's a good athlete, as evidenced by him running in the open field last year. I thought that was, Tom deserves probably some anger over how he used the tight end last year, but also a lot of props for finding Jared Wiley and going after him because he was a very unheralded prospect. So let's not dump on Tom too hard there. But you found this guy, Tom. Go ahead and play him. Epps I really like as number 12 at Bama. I think his number was Billingsley, more of a flex guy. They're going to bring him in and ask him to do what he can do. They're not going to bring him in and ask him to do something he can't do. The concern there with Epps is I believe he graduates in May. There's been some rumor in the past that he might look to go elsewhere, but hopefully this reinvigorates him. I think Tom had an idea what to do with him. He's just too rigid to get to the second page of his playbook to actually open up Epps. But Epps has some real value operating out of the slot. And he's a pretty good blocker on the little guys. He's not a good blocker defensive ends, but use those length on a smaller player, and he can own that guy. So there's some good parts here. Brewer's still going to play a little bit. He's versatile. You can do some things with him. He's probably a better option in 12 personnel rather than 11 personnel.
And Sark mentioned two of our early enrollee tight ends and Gunnar Helm and Juan Davis at his press conference. And I like both of those kids a lot. And they are tied for the fourth spot. So what's the word on these two?
Yeah, Helm is one that has been he's been impressing people with his work ethic and his fluidity as a route runner at his size. He's a really big kid, legit 6'5". He's kind of in the Wiley mold where he can do a little bit of everything. And could potentially be a really good tight end. Juan, there's not a lot of high school tape out there on Juan. It's hard to know what he is. We know that he's a well-coordinated guy. He's put on a lot of muscle in a short time to get there. It was quipped to me that the traps might be the highest point on his body. So he's taken to the weight room well. And he's going to have some of the best hands on the team, regardless of position. He can go and get it. But I think I would see him more in an H-back role. Whereas sort of how Brewer specs out, and then you've got Helm more like Wiley. So yeah, bright future with those guys, and then we'll see what they do with Jatavian Sanders when he gets there. It's going to be a pretty crowded room.
And we have Braden Liebrock waiting in the wings too. What's the deal with Braden?
He's out with a shoulder injury. He's a guy that could be that flex guy, sort of like Epps. The wonderful hands, great route runner. You just want those guys to be a serviceable blocker, and then you can get them out on the field.
All right, final tight end question. Is tight end the deepest position on the entire squad?
I think I would have to go with corner, actually, for 1 year and 1 year only, unfortunately. But right now, just because the talent at corner is also all going to be drafted. But tight end, as for the college game, what they're trying to do, Tom Herman would have loved to have this room earlier in his tenure. It's really weird that he took projects at tight end when he was so reliant on them. I'll never understand that.
Yeah, man, it's hard to see the rationale in a lot of that. But that's a wrap for offense. So that's awesome, man. So let's zoom out a little bit and give an overview to the fans of like what the new offense will look like in the coming months.
Yeah, I mean, summing up what the offense is looking to do, or the pieces that they have, there's the chance to have a really explosive offense that's going to be started off by the run game, and what I think will be an improved offensive line. Not just because Bijan makes them look better, but because they are improving and the pieces are in place. And then you've got the quick action in the quarterback passing game to RPO that will need a slot receiver, a reliable slot receiver to develop, so you can run sort of that triangle between the quarterback, the running back, and the slot. Lots of bodies at tight end. There's some outside receivers that can break out because of all the other things that are happening in and near the box. They stand to benefit from having man coverage. You're going to have these guys take advantage of these opportunities. I think they're going to have those players, and I think it's going to be a good offense overall. But the key is Bijan. Bijan, get that running game open. Everything else becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, man. Listening to Sark, it sounds like Bajan is going to be his weapon X, so it's going to be a lot of fun. And that's a wrap on O. So now let's go over to the defensive side of the ball. A lot of unique things happening on that side of the ball, and PK has a new scheme to implement as well. We have some new position types. So watch my PK defensive strategy video if you're unaware of these changes, and you'll be able to understand it. So let's get right into the big boys on the defensive line. So let's start with the nose position. Nose plays in the A gap in what is referred to as a one technique, just as a little refresher for the fans. How are things looking at nose with Keandre Coburn and Tavondre Sweat?
Yeah, so the defensive line has a lot of bodies. Of course, there are some questions because not everybody's healthy. The known there, the constant is Coburn, which is, we use as a standard of a weight measurement on Inside Texas. One Coburn is whatever Keandre Coburn weighs that day. Right now, he's around 340 or so. So he's a nose tackle, quintessential guy for that. Squatty, powerful, quick, surprising motor that runs hot. His duty cycle gets a little out of whack because he plays so hard. But you know, the value there is there's depth. So you can go play hard as hard as you can for 6 snaps and then get spotted by somebody like Tavondre Sweat who suffers from the same thing. It can also be a standard user measure of weight. Sweat is limited. Sark had said that he's out for the spring. He's not technically entirely out. He's out there and participating in the walkthrough type things. He will be limited when he won't be out there when the pads come on. Two fantastic guys for that position. Sweat is a guy that has been said from staff sources would be a guy that gets reps at Alabama. Just to give you an idea of the upside there. There's a little Hassan Ridgeway to him. You want to see him play more like Coburn. Want that motor running hot. At times it was Ridgeway taking plays off, and Malcolm Brown that was kind of providing all the effort. If Sweat plays with constant effort, he's going to be an all conference type of player. So the nose tackle or the one tech, that position's in good shape. With guys being injured, you are seeing Alfred Collins is going to play some one tech, which makes a lot of sense, more so in passing downs. Sawyer Gorham Welch has been playing at one tech as well. He's more of a three tech, but you do what you got to do with guys who are banged up.
Good stuff, man. And once again, for the fans, defensive tackles play in the B gap, which is known as a three technique or a three tech for short. So don't get confused. Three tech just means defensive tackle. So how are the defensive tackles looking? I really like our guys at DT.
Alfred Collins will be the starter there. There's no question about that. With him out, or at least limited with his wrist injury, Vernon Broughton has stepped in. Vernon is one of the best interior pass rushers the team has. Staff is very excited about him. He's great feet, great mobility. That basketball, he was supposed to be a basketball star in eighth grade. Everybody thought he was going to be an NBA player. Then he quit growing at 6'5". So that's when he switched to football. But he still has those basketball feet. Tremendous upside because he's never really had strength and conditioning like he's getting now. Sort of on a longer developmental curve than Alfred, but tons of upside. He could play three tech, one tech. He can actually even play the jack role if they had to. Maybe if they were going with a heavier set, goal line, short yardage. Talented guy. Behind him is Moro Ojimo. Ojimo played defensive end. He was sort of miscast last year, but he did it for the team and actually started to play well. He's your penetrating three tech type. You're not going to ask him to take on blockers. You're going to ask him to knife through. I think he's probably old enough to vote now, which, congrats to you, Moro. But just good player, good program guy. And so they have a lot of bodies. I'm probably even leaving out people if they've got so many in the interior. So this is definitely something. It's a bit of a embarrassment of riches that PK has to work with, and these guys kind of fit what he's trying to do too.
Our interior defensive linemen are going to be a huge strength for us this year. And we have two new position types in PK's defense that replace the traditional defensive ends. They are called the jack and the X backer. So, what are we looking for in the X backer position and who's starting there?
Yeah, the X backer is basically the Joseph Osai position from last year. It's a pass rushing outside linebacker that also has zone drops at times. Ray Thornton is coming in from LSU, who that was always the evaluation for him coming out of school. Out of clean was this position. He bounced around a little bit of LSU. He's a team guy. Played some three tech even for LSU, which is entirely out of position for a guy that weighs 245 pounds. But that tells you his toughness. It also tells you that he has some lower body strength to him. These guys, the staff is preaching professionalism, and I think Ray kind of exudes that from what I've heard. Come in ready to work, try to be a leader without overstepping your boundaries, being new. But he has the athleticism to at least test these tackles. The tackles need a test. We don't know if the offensive line's getting better or if Ray's getting better. They kind of offset each other. But at least they have somebody, a veteran with strength to go up against. So he's probably going to be your starting X. Behind him is Prince Dorba. Dorba has a lot of talent. He's had some good practices. This is definitely his time to come up and earn some snaps because he's going to play quite a bit this year, even if Ray is the starter.
Oh, you said another magic name in Prince Dorba. That's another fan favorite. So, what's the word on Dorba behind the scenes?
Yeah, Dorba's probably a bit more athletic than Thornton as a pass rusher, and more athletic as a zone dropper in space. He's also smaller and not quite as long, so your change of direction skills are typically going to be better. He's not going to hold up against a run as strong as a more mature Thornton, but he does have some pass rushing upside. You might see him in the smaller package they've got. I think they've even said it publicly. They've got a nitro package that would be where you probably see Dorba as your starting X.
Cool. Now let's go to the other side of the defensive line for the jack position. The jack is a bigger player than the X backer, and he's more concerned with run stopping and being disruptive in the pass rush. I know Jacoby Jones is at one, and I thought Ojimo would back him up, but you said he's at defensive tackle now. So, how's Jacoby Jones looking at Jack?
Yeah, well, this is well deserved by Jacoby Jones. He was sold at when he flipped from OU, he was sold as playing defensive end in a four-man front, and then Orlando promptly stuck him at 4I, which he was ill-suited for. Then he got to play defensive end last year and started to play better after overcoming some personal issues that were out of his control. He really started to play a lot better towards the end of the season, and Ojimo did as well. Clearly, those guys were starting to be coached up. Now he's got to be thinking he's in heaven. Now he gets to play a stand-up outside linebacker role, which is still more defensive end than anything else. But they're definitely going to try to get him pass rushing. He's got good hands, good feet, and there's a good chance he leads the team in sacks next season.
Do we have a potential number two player at Jack?
Well, it's very thin. It's a thin position dating back to the fact that they were going, they were using 4 eyes. So when you go to a 4-man front, you're lacking the bodies that you're looking for. They finally got the 4 eyes that they needed in Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton, and then they were out headed to USC. So behind Jacoby right now is Jet Bush, who they moved from Jack. Moved from X to Mike and now over to Jack just because they're so thin. That tells you all you need to know about the transfers coming in. Ovi Aguefo, I'm sorry if I messed his name up, from Notre Dame, and then also Ben Davis from Alabama, who the staff expects to get.
All right, that's a wrap for defensive line. And thanks for clearing up a lot of that for me, man. That was super helpful. So now we're going to go into linebackers, and we're only going to have 2 linebackers generally on PK's new defense. The middle linebacker known as a Mike linebacker and the weak side linebacker known as a Will linebacker. So let's talk about Mike first. We know that DeMarvion Overshown is our top linebacker, but he's out with a shoulder injury. So who's up next at middle linebacker?
Yeah, Overshown, unfortunately, they discovered a torn labrum recently, and he's gonna miss spring. Very unfortunate for him. Luckily, he got his feet wet at the position last year, and clearly he got a lot more comfortable as the season wore on. It's a big loss for the spring. You want him to get in the familiarity reps with PK's new defense. You want to get him used to all the calls and playing in the proper position. Finally, we're seeing a Mike. It's not as you've broken down expertly. The Mike isn't playing in the box as much, playing to the field. If you ever saw Malik Jefferson playing in the boundary, when your fastest defensive lineman getting absorbed in the boundary instead of playing out in the space and drove you crazy, here's our chance to rejoice a little bit. Overshown as a supreme athlete will be able to play in space, but he's out. In his place is David Benda. Benda, might be, if you put him in a straight line, as fast as Overshown, at least close to it. He's a good athlete. Definitely starting to get more comfortable out on the field towards the end of last year. Saw a lot of improvement over the course of last season. He's got some significant athleticism to him, and he's, that's the number one thing. Can they meet the athletic baseline requirements of that position? And Benda can. Behind him is Jaden Holaby. Holaby came in with there was a lot of excitement about him last August. Along with Ford, we were hearing about Holaby as well. Go watch him play a high school quarterback and run down the sidelines, and you can see some serious burst with him. He's a good athlete, good upside. They recruited him to play H-back, and my first eval on him was, you might want to look at him at linebacker because linebackers are a lot harder to find. So I'm excited to see what he can bring to the field. Even though Overshown's out, these guys are going to get a chance to grow and improve with more reps they wouldn't get otherwise.
And our second linebacker is the will linebacker. So what's the depth chart looking like there? Jalen Ford at 1, and where's Jawan Mitchell in the mix?
Yeah, Jalen Ford came in, impressed last August. Had the fastest 10-yard split of all the linebackers, which was a bit surprising for a guy that, his fit is true inside linebacker. So that explosive downhill first couple steps is exciting to hear about. Right now, he's a starting the first string. He's got those instincts that you're looking for. I'm not the greatest expert when it comes to diagnosing linebacker play because sometimes it's a little above my pay grade. But you can see him making plays that a lot of guys wouldn't. Utah wanted him. If you know how well drilled and schooled their defense is, that's an exciting player to get. That's the type of school you want to steal a recruit from. Jawan Mitchell was second team in the first practice. By the time you see this, there might be other news out there on him. We're not certain there. Jawan is an interesting character. He just has to stick with it. If he sticks with it, he's got some talent. He can run, he can hit. I think he was getting better at reading defenses, but he's going to have to stick with it and compete. And behind him, you've got Marcus Tillman. Tillman suffered an injury. He's got his freshman year, hasn't quite rebounded from that, or at least he hasn't to this date. But I think he's definitely looking more athletic than he had been at any time since the injury. I think he's just a little bit more down the depth chart because he doesn't have practice footage for the coaches to go on. So he's going to have to earn his way up, but that's what spring's about. So let's not forget about Marcus Tillman.
All right, so we need to keep an eye on the linebackers with DeMarvion's return to Mike and some volatility over at Will. So that's a wrap on linebackers. So let's move on to our defensive backs. There should be a lot of fun stuff going on here. So defensive back is easily the most exciting group as far as position battles go, and there's still a lot of dominoes left to fall. So Eric, what can you tell us about our DBs this year?
Yeah, well, if you're going to call yourself DBU, you better have a lot of defensive backs to go around, and Texas does have quite a few this year. They still have the leftovers from the 2018 class. Don't want to call them leftovers, holdovers from the 2018 class. And then, of course, they've got the new graduate transfer, who could be a starting cornerback at pretty much any country or any school in the country. So there's a whole lot for PK to work with, and Terry Joseph and Blake Gideon. Now it's just about getting all the guys in the right parts, figuring out your rotation, seeing who can do what, and getting them schemed up.
So corner has to be our best position battle right now on the entire team, with Deshaun Shark Jameson and Josh Thompson as the current starters. With the twos are McNeese State transfer Darian Dunn and then Keaton Crawford. So what can you tell us about this battle?
Yeah, cornerback, man. You got Josh Thompson and Deshaun Jameson coming back as starters after I think they had good junior years. Cornerbacks do get beat. Fans tend to remember the beats more so than the wins. Those guys played pretty well last year, especially in a tough conference in a new scheme. But Darian Dunn comes in. There's competition. Darian Dunn might have he might be the most prototypical corner on the roster as far as the NFL standards go. Locked up Tylan Wallace a couple years ago, which that's saying quite a bit. Texas hasn't had a corner that's been able to do that necessarily. So there's going to be a spirited competition between those three. They're all NFL athletes, without a doubt. Jameson's quite the playmaker. done sticky in coverage and has good length. And Thompson's a hell of an athlete. Um, this is going to have downward effects on the rest of the secondary, I think, because if one of them loses out, he might be the best option at nickel. And then let's not forget about Keaton Crawford. Keaton Crawford, I would bet the mortgage on him being a starting quarterback after this season. Wide receivers hate going up against him. He's physical, talks a lot of trash. He's got that East Texas dog that you want to hear about. And so, he's got upside. I think he was like a 10-600 guy in high school too, so he can run. I've always likened him to Terrell Brown, former Longhorn, played with my Niners for a number of years. Got a lot of similar attributes. So yeah, cornerback is pretty damn loaded in a conference where you have to be loaded. It's going to help the defense elsewhere. So we'll see. We'll see if the third corner ends up at nickel or not. Nickel has its own little battle going on.
Corner is going to be a lot of fun. Next up is field safety. Just a quick thing. So field safety has to play in more space. So he's the safety with the most range generally, and you're going to need to be quick to stay on a man in that much space. So we have Jaron Thompson, who is starting there currently. And who's number two? Is it early enrollee JD Coffee? I know Brendan Schooler moved to that position. So what's up there?
Yeah, Jaron Thompson came in late, got his hands on a lot of passes. Definitely shows that he's got good eye discipline, good instincts. It's basically what he looked like in high school. The only reason that he wasn't coveted by every school in the country is just top end speed. Sometimes an overrated attribute. You saw he kind of has attributes that Kwiatkowski had done well with at Washington. Just love the player, man. He's hard nosed, physical, good change of direction. There's a lot of versatile things you can do. Yeah, he lacks a little top end speed, but he makes up with it by seeing the game in an advanced way. And JD Coffee is very similar. JD Coffee, I was comparing JD Coffee to Jaron Thompson before Jaron Thompson was even signed. I'm a fan of these guys. Instincts are kind of a harder thing for the novice fan to pick up on. I kind of include myself in that. But when you see it, you know it, and both those guys have it. So they make up for that. Yeah, they're 4'6" guys, but they play 4'4" because of their mental capacity. And then Brendan Schooler, what do you have? Like 4 picks. There's 75 tackles as a freshman at Oregon. That's impressive. Even, you could always say Dylan Haynes had 4 picks, but I don't care if you're a true freshman or a freshman having 4 interceptions, 75 tackles in the Pac-12, you can obviously play. Obviously, guy likes to run around. He's pretty physical. We saw he's pretty physical for a wide receiver. So obviously physical on special teams as well. So yeah, we'll see. Put him back there. I don't think he's as good as Jaron Thompson, but you like having guys back there that you can trust that are savvy football players.
And now we are on to the boundary safety. And this safety has an emphasis on run stopping, and he generally plays in less space. So allowing them to be a little bit larger than the field safety. And fans are going to have their eyes glued to this position because it's 2 fan favorites. So first string boundary safety is actually BJ Foster.
Well, I'm really excited that BJ Foster is going to be in the same position for back-to-back seasons. He played really well last year. Not necessarily a guy you want man coverage, but which is why boundary safety is good for him. He's going to be hell in run support, one of the most physical guys in the country. Maybe a little too physical at times, and then not tasked with being in man coverage. More of a cleanup hitter from deep, where he's fantastic. He still has the speed. He's an enforcer back there, and he's got good instincts. He understands football. I still think he's going to be a fantastic NFL player. I have no idea what's going to happen to him this year. I think he's going to play well, but I think he's going to really break out in the NFL, where just his athleticism, his mentality, his physicality are going to really be put to use in a consistent way. So I'm a huge BJ Foster guy still. I know he hasn't quite had the 5-star career that people wanted or foresaw, but I think he's a heck of a football player, and I think he's going to have a breakout season.
Yeah, man, I hope this is the year that BJ puts it all together because I also think he could be a really special player. And then another very exciting name at number 2 is Tyler Owens. So I get asked about him all the time, and I'm sure you do too. So fans are super excited about him. So what's the deal with Tyler Owens behind the scenes? Is he coming along?
Yeah, the previous staff wanted to move Tyler Owens to linebacker. He didn't want to do that. If there's a safety role that he can excel at, it's probably this one. Some of the things I just said about BJ Foster translate to him. If he wants to run the alley and be physical, that's going to be a good role for him. But I really like him as a cleanup guy with that speed and that length. Um, it's more of a straight line position than some of the other defensive backs because you're playing everything is kind of in a straight line. You're playing at an angle. Don't have to flip your hips as much. And he's got the speed. If he has the recognition, now that could be a question. If he has the recognition abilities, then he can actually excel in that role. But he's going to have to wait his turn. BJ Foster, of course, like I said, sometimes he's too physical for his own good. He's only one hit away, one that he gives to somebody else from putting himself out of a game. But Tyler, I think that's the role where he can excel as a safety is if he's playing from deep. But again, recognition is huge there. But obviously he has the speed to make up for somebody else's mistake.
All right, fans, did you hear that? I got your Tyler Owens question answered. So no more Tyler Owens questions, at least for one day. So, and cool. So finally, we have the nickel position. We have an exciting position battle here as well. Anthony Cook is currently starting with Chris Adamora in second at this point. So what you got for us there on who could be our new nickel?
Yeah, the nickel, the fifth DB, sometimes the most important DB. A lot of different schemes are going to use it in different ways. For some people, it's a corner. For some guys, it's a safety. For Chris Ash last year, it was more of a linebacker than anything else. Adamora played it pretty well. It was odd to see Cook, with the knowledge that Ash wanted to use it more as a linebacker. It was odd to see Anthony Cook move there. The reason that Cook moved was just because they prioritized speed at corner. Man scheme, you got to be able to make up for a mistake at the line of scrimmage. And they didn't think that Cook had that necessary that makeup speed. And that was really the knock on Cook coming out of high school, which is why I didn't think that he was a 5-star when he was rated that high. I actually had Jameson ahead of Cook, but he has fantastic feet, fantastic cover skills. Just doesn't have that makeup speed. So if you're looking at nickel as a third corner, he's a fantastic candidate for that role. So I always talk about fit. How does a player fit? Get these guys in the right fits. Well, last year wasn't the right fit for him, but right now it's his time. Now it is the right fit for him. And Sarkisian's already speaking highly of him after one practice. So, and that, he has fantastic cover skills. There's no doubt about that. If they're asking him to cover more so than play force on the edge or in the run game, then that's gonna play to his strengths more so than maybe Adamora's. Now, Adamora is a pure football player. Loved him coming out of high school. Great change of direction. He's down about 8 pounds. He'll be down 10 pounds from where he played last year. The question I'll have is if it's truly a coverage position, I expect Anthony Cook to win out. What does that do to Adamora? I think there's downhill effects there where maybe Adamora ends up competing with our guy, Jaron Thompson. That could possibly happen. I think Cook is probably the leader, just with our feeling that it's going to go to more coverage type player, and then fans will be able to see that maybe he wasn't a 5-star corner, but he could be a fantastic nickel, and that nickel is hugely important in the modern game. Yeah, so Adamora, even if they do go to a coverage scheme for the nickel, he does have the change of direction skills and short area quickness that are going to help him out. Now, you don't want to see him carrying Marvin Mims deep. But he's definitely going to work over tight ends in coverage. I mean, he's got really good coverage skills, but more so towards a safety. Whereas Cook has good cover skills, more so towards a corner.
And that's a wrap on D. So, any larger topics you want to address about the new defense? Give fans more of a bird's eye view of what we're looking to do there.
Yeah, the ultimate question is going to be the pass rush. Can you get that sorted out? And that we won't know more about that until August. And even it might be tough to learn about that before we head into the season, just because it could be, sort of the offsetting players. You got, is Christian Jones good or is Thornton good? Or, we just won't know. We won't know that till the season. But we do know that they're going to have really good corner play, at least relatively speaking to the conference. And that's going to make everything easier. It's going to buy the defensive line more time to get to the quarterback. There's going to be very tough to run against. We know that because the interior players are going to be immovable, if not downright devastating to block. Alfred Collins is he's a top 10 overall draft pick waiting to happen. Coburn's immovable. Sweat's immovable. So there's a lot of strengths to scheme around. Tough up the middle makes things easier on the linebackers. And then you have the coverage guys. You have strength and coverage on the edges in that nickel, and it's going to take some of the stress off of coverage duties for the safeties. So there's a lot of good virtuous cycles here that you just would like to see them find a pass rusher to complement the coverage and to complement the behemoths in the middle.
All right, we aren't done yet. We still got to hit special teams. And we know Jeff Banks is an elite special teams coordinator who's doing a lot of cool stuff in that phase of the game. So, what should we expect to see from Banks and our special teams units in general?
Yeah, special teams is largely an effort and discipline thing, and I expect effort and discipline from from these guys. He is intense. You give him 15 minutes to coaching, he'll get an hour's worth of coaching in. That's how fast he goes. He's rapid fire. I've talked to former players that he had at A&M. I talked to a former coach that he coached with, who said, "I don't know where he gets half the things he does on special teams. Apparently, he's pretty innovative when it comes to coverage and fakes and all these other things." So I expect special teams to be at least start to restore itself back to where you saw Mac Brown's teams in the 2000s making plays.
One can only hope, brother, right? Is it still looking like Deshaun Jameson is going to be the returner?
Without a doubt, he'll be the punt returner, especially with other issues that we addressed with the wide receiver. Jake Smith is the backup. He's got a broken foot. Josh Moore's out. I don't know who else they put back there. Kai Money. So maybe Jane Alexis, but they'll have to find a backup. But yeah, it's Jameson as long as he's healthy. That guy, I mean, I've always compared him to Adoree Jackson. That's who he reminded me of in high school. And the only way you can beat Adoree Jackson is if you're housing punts. And Jameson's going to have a big year.
Also, we have the new early enrollee punter from Pro Kick Australia and Isaac Pearson. When do you think he could challenge for the starting punter gig?
I haven't heard a thing about him yet. Bushevsky's out, so he's going to have all the time in the world to punt. I'm just happy that he's here and practicing and assimilating when he doesn't necessarily have to be the starter. They threw Dixon out there his first year. He's got to be wondering what the hell's going on. And then same with Bushevsky. He had no time to assimilate. He's just out there, and you see them make these boneheaded mistakes, but you can't blame them. I saw Dixon. I was at Dixon's first practice, and one would go 70 yards, and the other would almost end up on I-35. It was crazy to watch. And then of course he had those infamous issues that year. But yeah, it's just good that he's over here. A year before they need him, or 2 years maybe.
Good stuff, man. Any final words on special teams?
He's. Banks is very vocal. I've got all these guys at Alabama. These first round draft picks are out there busting their ass on special teams. So you are too. And this Texas, these players have never really lacked for that attitude. The program has had its issues, but the issues haven't been effort from the players or want to, or being good teammates. So I think that's going to resonate with them. You're going to see starters out there trying to make plays on special teams. And they're going to be out there competing. They don't care. They don't care if you're going in the first round or second round or whatever. You're going to be out there. But the players are cool with that. That's how they want it.
All right, brother, man. That was absolutely awesome, and I have a really good feel for the upcoming team thanks to you, and I appreciate you stopping by the channel. And I know the fans are really going to love this one. So that's a wrap for Eric from Inside Texas. Any parting words, Eric?
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. Had a good time. Always love talking horns. Such a rabid fan base. I'm excited for the fans to have this new coaching staff in place. Excitement is renewed. Talented program, talented players. Look forward to covering it and can't wait to be back.
Thanks again, brother. Until the next one. All right, it's just me and you now, so thanks for watching. If you like what you see, then check out my channel memberships. Make sure to head over to Inside Texas and stay up to date with all things Texas football. Watch some more of my videos here, and don't forget to share this spring ball preview with other Texas fans. As always, hook 'em.